Frank Sinatra and the concept album. That's what I'll be talking about today on a long overdue edition of My Classic Albums. But first, my name is Brian Hussar, and on this channel I talk about my passions of the Beatles, music, movies, and musical theater. If you like what you see, please click that subscribe button, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. I am a big Frank Sinatra fan. Frank is one of my big obsessions. Don't talk about him that much on my last videos, but I've been kind of getting there. He is a big obsession, and he came to me later in life. That's when I really got into him. I was in my mid-20s, and I got to learn about Sinatra. I got to learn about the way he sang, but more importantly, I got to learn about the fact that this guy's an icon, but people seem to forget he was an innovator. He was an innovator. He was signed to Capitol Records in the 50s after From Here to Eternity, and he got his Oscar. He was on a massive comeback. I mean, you got to understand that with Sinatra, he was considered dead in the water. He had a couple of flops. He lost his voice, lost his contract at MGM, and he was considered pretty much old hat. With From Here to Eternity and the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, he got this beautiful deal at Capitol, and he started to go on this massive artistic high, in my opinion. I feel that every album he did at Capitol in the 50s is an essential album. Every album. I'm talking about not the compilations, but the actual albums. Sinatra, when he got signed to Capitol, the 12-inch 33 1/3 RPM record was just coming into vogue. We graduated from 78 RPM and we're going to 33, and some of the first 33 1/3 records were 10 inches, but the 12-inch started to come. Sinatra saw that. His first two albums at Capitol, Swing Easy and Songs for Young Lovers, were 10-inch records. They were eventually combined on a 12-inch at one point. But to me, what I consider the first album, and what is considered the first real concept album, before the Beatles did Sgt. Pepper, before the Beach Boys did Pet Sounds, before The Who and Tommy, and before Pink Floyd and Dark Side of the Moon, the first real concept album is this. 1955, Frank Sinatra and the Wee Small Hours. This is an original edition. I was very lucky to find this. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Gray Capitol label. This thing is in excellent shape. Now, with this album, he decided to, with the 33 1/3 album, he knew that he could have thematic song programming. He could have a mood sustained throughout the album. And he could pick a group of songs that would fit that mood. And on this album, great collaboration with the brilliant arranger and conductor Nelson Riddle. They picked a mood that, to me, is always reminds me of, even though the album cover art shows Sinatra, Man About Town, what appears to be nighttime, but to me the album is, you're lying in bed early in the morning, you're trying to get back to sleep, but you really can't. You got these thoughts roaming around in your head, and you keep on thinking about your long-lost love. Like, maybe in the fall, because autumn is always an image in Sinatra's ballad work. 5 o'clock in the morning, sun's not up yet, you're sitting there, you're lying in bed, and then the sun finally comes up at the end, and that's it. The title track, the brilliant title track, the classic, in the wee small hours of the morning, that's the time you miss her most of all. It says it right there. And then the album takes you on that journey. A lot of great classics here. Mood Indigo, the great Rodgers and Hart classic, Glad to Be Unhappy. Hoagy Carmichael, who I think is probably the greatest songwriter of the 20th century. I Get Along Without You Very Well. What Is This Thing Called Love? Cole Porter, another great songwriter of the 20th century. In fact, I would probably say Cole Porter is my favorite all-time songwriter. But all of these songs, they fit a mood. They're ballads. Every song on this album, the way it's sequenced, is like a different scene from a movie. Even though this isn't what you would later call a narrative concept album like Tommy or The Wall, essentially a rock opera. Sinatra would eventually do those. But the album sustains this mood, side 1, end of act 1. Flip it over, side 2. Another inspiration for this album, Sinatra's separation to what was his love of his life at the time, Ava Gardner. His delivery in the songs reflects that heartbreak. Now, this album isn't as dark as what would become later on with Frank Sinatra Sings for Only the Lonely or No One Cares. There's still a wistfulness about the arrangements and his delivery. You got some songs that have full orchestration, and the celeste sort of becomes a motif throughout the album, a sound motif. But you got some songs that have full orchestra, some songs that just have a small combo of drums, bass, and acoustic guitar. A small combo. So brilliant alternating between large orchestration and small combo. But his delivery is one of heartbreak. He's definitely vulnerable in these songs. Something that you wouldn't hear on the other side of Sinatra. Sinatra had two personas. The one that gets celebrated nowadays, more or less, is that of the swingin' hipster. But this persona that really gets me with Sinatra is the lonely man about town. This guy right here. Roaming the streets, trying to go into a bar that may be closed, a cigarette in hand, constantly thinking back to his lost love, or lost loves. And this was the first real album of that persona. And then subsequent albums with this persona would get darker. To me, the masterpiece of masterpieces is Frank Sinatra Sings for Only the Lonely. And I'm going to do a video on that one at some point. But this is the first in a long line of masterpieces. His performance is great. One of the things about Sinatra that in my eyes make him such a great interpreter of a lyric. Same thing with Barbra Streisand. Believe it or not, I'm a Streisand fan. I know that would probably shock some people. Both of them are great actors when they sing. They put such a great acting ability to the lyrics they sing. They believe every word, and you believe them when they are singing these lyrics. That's why if I hear anybody else do these songs, it takes me out of the mood. Because Sinatra really, with his persona on these songs, he really milks the emotion of every lyric. And he couldn't have found a much more sympathetic arranger in Nelson Riddle. Now, my eyes, Sinatra worked with three big arrangers. Riddle, Billy May, and Gordon Jenkins. Gordon Jenkins, he knew how to write for strings, but Riddle, he knew how to do these orchestrations that were around Sinatra's vocals. They really complemented Sinatra and his vocals. And with Sinatra, he was able to make every album totally different, the ones that he collaborated with him on. And I think he was his most frequent collaborator. And so this is a masterpiece. And I think that everybody should own this. In fact, this is a box set that came out a few years ago. Frank Sinatra, the concepts. Now, what is missing in this box set is A Jolly Christmas from Frank Sinatra and the instrumental album he did called Tone Poems of Color, where he commissioned songwriters and composers to write pieces based on certain colors. And that's missing from here. But every album that he did at Capitol during this period, the first two 10 inches, Songs for Young Lovers and Swing Easy, In the Wee Small Hours, Songs for Swingin' Lovers, Close to You, A Swingin' Affair, Where Are You, his first album with Gordon Jenkins, Come Fly With Me, A Jolly Christmas from Frank Sinatra, Frank Sinatra Sings for Only the Lonely, Come Dance With Me, No One Cares, Nice and Easy, Sinatra's Swingin' Session, Come Swing With Me and Point of No Return. Those are essential albums. I feel everybody should own them all if you are a big Sinatra fan. And of course there were compilations mixed in there as well, like All the Way, and This is Sinatra, and This is Sinatra Volume 2. But those are the actual albums. Just like the Beatles would eventually do in England, he never put his singles like The Lady's Tramp, Witchcraft. Those were never on the albums. However, Songs for Swingin' Lovers does have a masterpiece, I've Got You Under My Skin. But that's a different album. But in the wee small hours, Frank Sinatra, great arrangements by Nelson Riddle, great vocals by Sinatra, an all-around great album to listen to from beginning to end, and it really creates a mood and it sticks with you. A masterpiece. And that is my take on this classic album. Thank you all for watching. Leave me some comments. And till we meet again.